Welcome back. In the last lesson, we introduced lists and we covered how to create lists, how to access list elements, and perform some basic operations like adding and removing items. The first thing we'll talk about in this lesson is list slicing. Slicing allows you to extract parts of a list. Imagine a bookshelf filled with books. Sometimes you want to read just a few books in the middle of the shelf. List in Python lets you do all that with slicing. Okay, so here we have the syntax of slicing a list. You have the list, right, and then followed by square bracket notation, and inside of that you provide the start index. The start index is the index to start slicing the list from, and the result will include the item at this index. The default start value is 0. If you don't provide the start value, Python is going to default to 0. Okay, the end index is the index to stop slicing at. The item at this index is not included in the result. If you don't provide it, the slice will extract all the items in the list till the end of the list. Now let's have an example. Okay, so just before we start our example, I'm going to create a markdown file so that we'll be putting all our previous examples in that file in case we need to make reference to the previous examples. So I'm going to go to my root folder and then I'm going to create a new file. Okay, so I'm going to call that reference, okay, .md. That's the extension for markdown. Okay, so I'm just going to copy our previous example so that in case we need to make reference, we have that as a reference. Okay, so let me use this as heading. What did we talk about in last lesson? We have list. Okay, so we can call that, let's call it intro to data types. All right. Okay, so we have this Python code. And I'm going to paste that. This is Python, not Python. Okay. All right. So we're going to be pasting our examples in this file. Okay, so I'm going to close this editor. We don't need to see that. If you want to open that, use this button. Okay, so it's going to render it as an HTML. Right. Okay, so you can scroll to left and right, intro to data type. Okay, so I'm just going to close that. Right. Intro to data types. Let's call this list. Okay. So let's close that. I will be pasting our previous example in that markdown file in case we need to make reference to our previous examples. Okay, now let's come back to list slicing. Let's say we have a list of fruits, okay? So that we use that for our example. Okay, we can copy the previous list we worked with. Okay, so let's copy this. They are all fruits. Okay. We can add more fruits inside of this list. Let's say, what other fruits can we add? Let's add carrots, okay? And we can also add, let's say, dates. Okay, now we have a list with how many items? 5 items, list of fruits. Now to slice a list, we want to extract out part of the list, okay? So to do that, just like we did with string, we have the name of the list, which is fruits now in this current case, followed by square bracket notation, and then you provide the start index. Okay, so let's say we want to extract the first 3 items now, the first 3 elements. So the start index is going to be 0. That is where we want to start extracting the list items from. Okay, and then followed by colon. And then we are going to write the end index. But take note that the items at the end index is not always inclusive. So if you want to extract the first 3 items now, that means we are going to provide the index of the 4th item so that the extraction is going to stop at the 3rd item. Okay, now we have 2 carrots in the list. What other? Let me add cherry. Okay, let cherry be the, because I think we used that in our last example, right? So we're going to have 4 as the end index. We want to extract the first 3 items, but take note that the end index, the item at the end index is not always added. So if we put 3 now, that means only the first 2 items will be extracted, but we want the first 3 items. That means we are going to write 4. Okay, now if we print this, let's print this, or I'm going to print. Okay, if I run this now, Okay, so you can see that I made a mistake. We want to extract the first 3 items, and then we're going to use the index of the fourth item. The index of the fourth item is 3. We have 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so those are the little mistakes that can come up with indexing. You take note that your index starts counting from 0. So the first item now is going to have the index of 3. 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay, now if I run this, okay, so now we have the first 3 items extracted from our list. So this is list slicing, just like we have string slicing. If you don't provide the end index, that means Python is just going to extract the items from the start index you provided up to the end. Let's have an example of that. We can comment this out. So if you don't provide the end index, let's say we write just 0 and colon, we are not providing the end index. That means Python is going to start the extraction from the start index we provided up to the end of the list. If we say we are starting from the third item, which has the index of 2, if we run this now, that means Python is going to start from the third item, which is cherry in this case, then up to the end of the list. If we don't provide the start index and we provided only the end index, now I'm not providing the start index. So the start index is going to default to 0. Okay, so if I run this now, we don't have an index of 6. We don't have an element with the index of 6 in this list. So let's say we are stopping at, or this 0, 1, 2, 3. Let's say we want to stop at 3. So if we run this now, so you are going to have apples, banana, and cherry, because our stop index is 3, which is carrots. Okay, so if you don't provide the start index, it's default to 0. If you don't provide the end index, it's going to extract up to the end of the list. Now, if you don't provide any of the indexes needed for the extraction, you don't provide the start index, you don't provide the end index, that means Python is going to start from the start of the list up to the end of the list. If I run this now, I'm going to see that we have the whole list printed, we have the whole list extracted. This is how you slice list. And then we can also do reverse selection. That means we can start selecting our items from the back of the list. If you want to do reverse selection, you use negative index. Let's say we want to select only the last item from this list. That means we are going to use our -1. So if you run this now, you are going to have only the last item printed, sliced out from the list. Okay. Let's say we want to slice out the last 2 items. So we are going to use our -2. That is going to slice the last 2 items. So we have dates, we have carrots. So we have dates, we have carrot. We want the last 3 items, that is our cherry, carrot, and date. So if I run this now, I'm going to have cherry, carrot, and date. So this is how you do reverse selection. Use negative index for reverse selection. The slicing syntax can also accept a third value, which stands for step. Step is the increment in sequence of items to be extracted. The default value is 1, which means every item within the defined range will be selected. We've also seen this when we're dealing with strings. If you provide a number different from 1, that means a number of items will be omitted during the selection. Okay, so let's say we want to slice out all the items in this fruit list. So we are going to start from 0 as the start index, and then the end index is going to be, so I'm going to have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. The last item A has an index of 4, so that means we are going to provide 5. If you provide 4, that means the last item will not be included, because the item at the end index is not always included in the result. Okay, so now that we have 4 as the last index here, that means we are going to provide 5. Okay, now the third value stands for index. By default, the default value is 1. If you run this now, we are going to have all the items sliced out from the list. Okay, if you provide a different step value now, let's say 2, that means we're going to start from the first item, which is the index of 0, and then we're going to omit this, and then we pick the next item. We've also seen this when we're dealing with strings. Okay, now so we have apple, which is at the start of the slicing. So we have apples. The next item is omitted because we have a step of 2. Okay, now we are going to pick cherry. Now we have cherry. Okay, so the next item is going to be omitted. That means carrot will be omitted. And then the next item is going to be picked. That's why we have dates. Okay, so this is how step work in list slicing. So this syntax now, we can also modify it since the default value of start is 0, so we can get rid of this. The default value for end is the last item, so we can get rid of this, and we can also run this. This is going to achieve the same result as we have earlier. Okay, so it is only compulsory to provide the start and end value if you are not starting from the start of the list and you are not ending at the end of the list.